Hello everyone, and welcome to Techstrong TV. Today is Tuesday, March 7th, and I hope you're all having a wonderful day so far. I'm your host, William Willis, and in today's show, we're going to bring you some fantastic interviews with incredible guests from around the world, so stay tuned. As always, I'm going to start off with our Techstrong News Recap, filling you in on the biggest tech headlines that are making waves. Then we'll head over to Allen, where he meets with Bryce Hine, Chief Marketing Officer for Sysdig, to talk about what's next for Sysdig after a monumental year in new customer growth. Then we'll air a session from Predict 2023. In this session, Bonnie Schneider and Amanda Rosani host a fireside chat with Patrick Pugh of PwC US and Ming Gong of Transcovery Consulting to talk about what worked for them and what didn't, and what they do differently in 2023 given the macro environment. We then go to Bonnie, where she sits down with Dr. Shubh Basu, co-inventor and product advisor for Red SOS, to discuss how this innovative app is helping to reduce emergency response times, its impact on the tech industry, and its role in the field of emergency response and personal safety. Next, we'll air another episode of The Haunted Hacker with Mike Jones. In this episode, Mike Jones continues his discussion with Greg Vandergast about new approaches to security in the state of the industry. Then we are airing an episode of CISO Talk. In this episode, Bitch Ashley introduces new co-host, cybersecurity expert and CISO advisor, Jennifer JJ Manila, as the two will explore the role advisors play in helping guide cybersecurity leaders in their organizations across diverse subjects, including network technologies, governance and compliance, AppSec, and securing cloud-native infrastructure and applications. Mitch will then be joined by Mike Lukides, Vice President of Emerging Technology Content at O'Reilly Media, to discuss the top developer trends and technology shifts outlined in O'Reilly's report. Then we'll wrap up this broadcast with 2 episodes of View at the Bizarre. In the first episode, Mike interviews LogZ.io CTO Asaf Yagal, as Asaf explains how generative artificial intelligence will be used to better automate DevOps workflows. Then Mike interviews Faisal Bhutto, Senior Vice President for Cloud and Cybersecurity at Calian IT and Cybersecurity, as Faisal explains how generative artificial intelligence platforms such as ChatGPT are about to turn the cybersecurity world upside down. And that's what we have coming up for you in this episode of Techstrong TV. So without further ado, let's get the show started. Enjoy.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Hi again, everyone. Here are the headlines for March 7th. First up, to limit China's ability to obtain technologies that could enhance its military strength, the Biden administration plans to implement new rules on certain overseas investments by U.S. companies. The executive order will restrict American investment in advanced technologies that have national security applications, like next-generation military capabilities, that could improve China's military decision-making capabilities. The White House's move follows the implementation of export controls in October of 2022 to limit China's access to advanced chips, and is part of a broader series of measures aimed at targeting China's technology sectors amid an already strained relationship between the world's 2 biggest economies. Next, Amazon has announced the construction of its second headquarters in Virginia will be delayed due to the company changing plans regarding remote work and its recent round of layoffs. The construction of the tower, however, is still expected to proceed as planned. Despite the delay, Amazon is still committed to Arlington and has already hired thousands of employees for the first phase of development, which was set to open in June. Amazon has said that the delay will not affect any performance-based incentives promised to the company, and that it is still determined to complete its plans for the new headquarters. In other news, the U.S. has announced that it will mandate states to report cybersecurity threats in their audits of public water systems due to the increasing risk of cyber attacks. The Environmental Protection Agency has stated that cyber attacks on public water systems pose a significant threat to public health and will provide assistance to states and water systems to build cybersecurity programs and provide technical expertise. The EPA's memo establishes minimum cybersecurity measures for the municipal water systems, following the administration's earlier efforts to establish standards for pipelines in the rail sector. This being said, the EPA has not yet set any enforcement deadlines or financial assistance. The White House's recent surveys indicate that municipalities lack the resources to protect drinking water systems from cyber attacks. However, some experts are doubting the effectiveness of the EPA's approach. Next up, ARM, a microchip designer based in the UK, has decided not to pursue a listing on the London Stock Exchange this year. Instead, the company will aim for a US-only listing in 2023, a move that has sparked concerns that the UK is not doing enough to attract technology stock offerings. With this being said, ARM has stated that a UK listing will be considered at a later date. The company, which was founded in Cambridge in 1990, designs the technology behind processors that power devices from smartphones to game consoles. Previously, ARM had a dual listing on the London Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ for 18 years, until it was purchased by SoftBank in 2016. On Security Boulevard, we have an article on a report from Picus that shows a growing use of adaptable malware. This Swiss Army knife malware is so versatile that it can adapt behaviors to different IT environments. What's worse is that the structure of the malware makes it so our current static indicators would have a hard time detecting it. To learn more, go to securityboulevard.com. On DevOps.com, we have an article that looks at a report that identifies the top 10 open source software risks. The report, which is conducted by Ender Labs, is part of an effort to educate app development teams about what can cause software supply chain compromises. To learn more, go to DevOps.com. Finally, on Digital CXO, we have an article that looks at why you should use the economic downturn to clear out your organization's IT clutter. Today's mantra is do less with more, but instead of cutting back on infrastructure upgrades, organizations should take time to get rid of their IT clutter to create a more lean environment. To learn more, go to digitalcxo.com. And that's today's Techstrong News Recap.
ContainerJournal.com is the leading online destination for centralized computing-related content. ContainerJournal.com covers all aspects of software containers, from container management, data management for containers, container security, networking for containers, to the entire container ecosystem, Kubernetes, microservices, serverless, and more. ContainerJournal.com has the largest selection of container-related news, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.containerjournal.com to learn more.
This is Techstrong TV.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Techstrong TV. I am happy to introduce you to, he's a first-time guest here on Techstrong, Bryce Hine. Bryce is a recently announced CMO at Sysdig. And for those of you who watch Techstrong TV, you know, we feature Sysdig pretty regularly. They're good people, that they have great product, and we always enjoy hearing what's going on at Sysdig. So let's welcome Bryce to his first Techstrong TV interview here. Hey Bryce, welcome. How are you?
Thank you, Alan. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. So, don't want to embarrass you or anything, but congratulations on the new role and as CMO there. And let's start with a little bit about Bryce, if you don't mind. We want to share with the audience.
Yeah, happy to do that. And I'll keep it short because I'd rather talk about tech than talk about myself. But so I've been at Sysdig now since the start of the year. Prior to that, I was actually with a company in cyber called ExtraHop. So more on the detection and response SecOps side of kind of the industry. And then previous experience in big data analytics and data management, storage, those industries. But quick fact, Alan, I actually started my career as a systems administrator. So
really?
Yeah. And I've always tried to keep that sort of sensibility and empathy because while the market has completely changed, right, since the mid-90s, certainly the pressure on IT, on DevSecOps teams is higher than ever. And that urgency to do more with less is just like right at the forefront. So anyway, a little interesting tidbit.
Yeah, no, you know what?
So from where I sit, Bryce, right, I get to interview a lot of people and a lot of CMOs. And I get really bummed out when people in our audience say something like, oh, it's a CMO, he or she's just a marketing person. You know what? I'm going to venture a guess that 66%, two-thirds of CMOs actually started their business careers on the tech side of the house.
Yeah.
They were engineers, sysadmins, security folk, or, some of them write code, have written code. They have hundreds, thousands of lines of code in commercial products. And then they, at some point in their career, they moved over to the business side.
Yeah.
Right? And it become eventually the successful ones, become CMOs and VP marketing and so forth. So, I'm not surprised. I'm happy to hear it, but I'm not surprised.
As an industry, you think about your viewers, right? And what they're trying to solve within not only just sort of like the overall build cycle and trying to innovate cloud and in the cloud, but also secure it. And that's a challenge. And so if you don't bring people who have technical background to be able to talk to people with really hard technical problems, I think you're missing out. And the speed at which cloud is moving and which cloud security is moving and evolving, you've got to have technical chops or you just won't survive.
I agree. I tell people, even our marketing and sales people here at Techstrong, right? Because our audience is very technical, and all of our sponsors are tech vendors.
Yeah.
You got to be able to talk the talk and walk the walk. You're not going to fake it with these people. They smell it a while away, right? And so it's important. I think you're 100% right. So, Bryce, 90% of our audience has heard of SysDig. 75% of them think they know what SysDig does. 50% of them are probably right. But for the other 50%, how would you describe kind of SysDig's mission to them and what SysDig does?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So SysDig fundamentally is a cloud security company. And we got our start solving what we consider the hard part, which is runtime and workload protection. But over the last couple of years, it really spread out to cover the entire gamut of cloud security, which is not an easy thing to do. Anything from configuration and vulnerability management to identity and access controls through to detection and response. So you can think of us as starting with runtime insights. That's how we sort of anchor our value inside our platform. But we apply it to both shift left and shield right. Just that's how we think about the business, is you've got to cover kind of that whole gamut.
Absolutely. I like that. Shift left, shield right.
Yeah.
It's a good way of saying it.
Yeah. What we find, Alan, is that a lot of the runtime learnings that you have, in fact, we just published a 2023 basically a security and usage report. So we do this every year. This is, I think, the 6th year we've done it. And you'd be really surprised what you find out about what's in use and how that can be applied to prioritizing vulnerabilities and configurations and things you need to do upstream. So that's where the whole sort of shift left, shield right kind of comes from, as a mindset of thinking across that.
Absolutely. I think we covered this year's report. We cover the report every year. Someone on our team, I think we have an article and some videos if people want to look up on Security Boulevard or on Techstrong TV.
Yeah.
So, Bryce, it's an interesting time, certainly in the tech world, right? We've had a lot of companies doing layoffs. VC funds have slowed down a little bit, though. Fact be told, they're still pretty healthy.
Yeah.
But security's never been more important.
Yeah.
Right? Security's job one. Sitting where you sit now as the CMO here at SysDig, where do you see the market? Where do you see where you guys have to kind of make your mark and get your message out?
Yeah, I would say this. You're right. The stakes have never been higher, both to solve the things that we know and the vulnerabilities, and to deal with the things that are addressable, and to deal with the things that are unknown. I think about your audience and basically just an army of one going against all kinds of, cyber syndicates and nation states and all of that. So one of the places where I think as an industry, I haven't spent enough time, particularly on the cloud side of the house, is on detection and response for unknown threats. So I actually think this is the year where that becomes more important. if we've done the things that we need to do on shift left, and I'm not saying that's solved, right? There's still a lot to do. It's really trying to figure out how we capture unknown threats in time in a world where, a container life is average 5 minutes, right? And that, we talk about ephemeral, but the people on your audience know, like, things are going up and down all the time. And if you're not able to detect in real time, if you're not able to respond in real time, I think that just opens up the aperture for attacks.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. The average lifespan of a container is one measure.
Yeah.
But I think overall, we've gotten good at this DevOps stuff. We've gotten good at continuous integration and continuous deployment. We've even gotten pretty good at shift left, right?
Yep.
Shifting, not just security left, but testing, QA in general, and
Yep.
everything else. We're releasing faster and more in a more automated fashion than ever before. But that acceleration of these business cycles, I think, is just more pressure on the camel's back of, we got to keeping up, right? It's like, I finally got up to speed where I'm running with you, and now you hit the engine again, and I got to, and I don't know how we keep doing, right? How much more can we squeeze out of this baby?
Well, there's a couple of things that I see as both good reminders of where we're at, but then also kind of hope for the future. First of all, I think we have to acknowledge that in no part of the business is there more pressure on sort of like speed versus risk and how you manage that, right? I will say on the shift left part, the interesting thing we found is if you look at what is in runtime, if you think about the containers in runtime and so on, 85% of those still have high or extreme vulnerabilities measured by CVSS. So there's still work to be done to prioritize what we're doing shift left. And I think if we can do that in a way that isn't a drag on dev, that isn't even more of a burden, that's a prioritized way that sort of gets the mess out of the way, there's hope in that. In other words, taking insights for what's in runtime and applying them back to vulnerability management and the like. I will say the other piece of hope for me, you mentioned the maturity level of where we're getting to, right? Real-time delivery, uptime has never been higher. I actually think that when we talk about detection and response, Alan, that there's a way to get the response actually automated in cloud well before we do it on-prem. If I give you an example, one of my competitors over in another life talked a lot about TCP resets as a way to sort of respond, right? Okay. Well, that's like taking a hammer to it, right?
Yeah, no, that was 20 years ago. I'm selling IDS, IPS.
There you go.
There was some of the IPS vendors. That's what they would do when they'd see suspect traffic. They'd do a TCP reset. It was stupid then. It's stupider now, probably, but
right.
I'm surprised to hear it.
No, still people kind of espousing the value of that. But I do think, to your point about where we're getting on maturity, there's an opportunity to do automated response in the cloud and to sort of build that into how we think. And to me, that's hope. To me, that's hope of how you can, first of all, you got to address it. You've got to know what those threats are. But second of all, how do you build infrastructure to be able to react? And I think there's hope in the cloud.
Look, one of the things about the cloud was it gave us a chance to maybe correct some past sins, right? To have a fresh start, if you will. Of course, look, you were around the same way I was. When cloud first came out, one of the big knocks was, well, it's inherently insecure, right? Cloud, how do you secure the cloud? I think overall our industry's done an amazing job of answering that, right? If cloud security is not on-prem or, molten castle security.
Yeah.
I think initially people said what they said because they were thinking in terms of taking what we had used, on-prem, if I could use that word, and just shifting it up to the cloud.
Yeah.
cloud washing it. That didn't work. But we've now seen companies like Sysdig that were purpose-built
Yep.
for the cloud security mission, right? That weren't built to be sitting as a big honking box next to the router or something, inspecting traffic like that. And it's made a huge difference. I think, I don't know if anyone would raise their hand and say the cloud is less secure than an on-prem data center these days.
Yeah. No, and so I feel a sense of urgency on, helping people solve the vulnerabilities, on doing detection and response in an automated fashion. But I guess I would add one thing you said made me think. There's another hope, which is to do it in an open and community-based.
Sounds like Star Wars. There's one more hope, Yoda.
There's got one more hope, man.
We have
you gotta have it.
Another. There is another. There's a sister. But yeah, what's the new hope or the last?
I think
hope?
the other hope is, as we tackle supply chain challenges and so on, which they're just native to what we do, we have to do that as a community. And we believe fundamentally in open source and building on open source and contributing to open source. Frankly, it's a reason that I'm here, is because I also believe in that mission, that ethos. And the company was founded on it. I don't know how many of your viewers actually know, but we're actually the creators of Falco, which is really the default standard for detection in the cloud. And over 50 million downloads. Wow. People are using it. Our product is built on it. It's centered around, Falco is open source.
Yeah, I don't know how many of our audience knows this.
Yeah.
Because it's not something that we've gotten a lot of light on. This is something, maybe someone could write an article on that we could put on Security Boulevard or something. It's true. I mean, and look, you're not the only one. So much of our infrastructure today is built around open source, right? Cloud native is almost all open source.
Yeah.
So, I think when I look over the landscape, probably one of the biggest things over the last, let's say, 10 years has been the domination of open source. It's not just sneaking in the back door.
No,
anymore.
It's not.
It comes right in through the front door and it's welcomed, right? It's become the standard.
That's right. Standard, and it's pushed us on innovation side. I mean, whether it's standards like Falco, or I'll give you another one that we didn't contribute, but we use heavily, is a technology called eBPF. And certainly it's getting a lot of hype right now, but effectively what it allows you to do is instrumentation up at the code level, up at the host level. So, and by the way, that's a whole religious war for cloud security vendors: is do you go agent? Do you go agentless?
It's always been a religious war.
That's
there's a lot of charlatans who say they're agentless, but
they sneak an agent in under another name. But yeah, I've fought those wars.
Well, if I could just add a comment on that, I think eBPF is an open source technology that will certainly help. And if you're asking me, I think this year is the year where that gets settled in the industry, where instrumentation is going to have both. It's going to be agentless, where it's very simple to get to API and logs, and when runtime in areas like that where you're going to need to use agents or column collectors if we all want to get more comfortable with it. But it's going to, for cloud security, which is a hard, full throttle kind of challenge, it's going to require a spectrum of use of agentless and agents.
Don't disagree with you for a second, my friend. Bryce, we're about out of time. I told you the 15 minutes goes really quick. We're actually over, but it's been a pleasure having you on. I want to wish you the best of luck over at Sysdig and to all our friends at Sysdig. Don't be a stranger. You have an open invitation. Come on whenever you'd like. You got something to share, let's share it. Okay?
All the best, Alan.
Thank you. Bryce Hyde, newly installed, newly minted CMO over at Sysdig here on Techstrong TV. We'll be back in just a moment.